You don't always have to be inside the main character's head in order to have a good time. I'm Falcon, and today on gameranx, the top 20 third-person games of 2017. Number 20. Pray for the Gods is a really interesting action-adventure survival game being developed by the three-person No Matter Studios. It was a project that was revealed and kickstarted in 2015 and has a lot of very interesting mechanics regarding equipment that you pick up along the way. There's a grappling hook, for instance, that is, well, it's frankly pretty sweet. Ultimately, a lot of the gameplay revolves around climbing, including how you defeat the bosses in the game, the giants that you have to track and figure out a way to approach. You'll have to climb them, pray, and then attack them, hence the name. And everything we've seen of this game makes it look like it's definitely going to be something at least special, hopefully incredible. Number 19. Rime. Rime is a very artistic looking game that has drawn a lot of comparisons from Wind Waker to Journey to any of the Team Ico games. If you describe the game, it would sound quite a bit like The Witness, but in execution it actually doesn't look very much like that at all. They are both games that take place on an island where you'll have access to a variety of puzzles, and the developers cite the Studio Ghibli films as influence, and altogether it really does look like a very good experience. I'm looking forward to it. Unfortunately, it's one of those games that's had a long development and it keeps getting delayed, so I hope it comes out this year. Number 18 is Splatoon 2, which really looks as though it finally is going to bring Splatoon to the masses because Switch is doing much better than the Wii U, and Splatoon was a sadly overlooked game because of this. Everyone wanted to play Splatoon, but there weren't really a lot of people with Wii U's. That's probably going to change. Now, they gave people a bit of a sample of it with a demo in March, but the game itself wasn't massively different. There were a couple of minor differences, but we won't really know for certain if it's a huge evolution or not. Either way, the mass audience really hasn't gotten to play Splatoon yet, so there is that to capitalize on, but I do hope there's more to it this time. Not that there wasn't enough to the previous game, it's the second game. I've already played the first game, and I want a little bit more. Hopefully some bigger levels, too. Number 17 is the Surge action RPG, where humans in robotic exoskeletons, or armor, the developer Deck 13 describes as a combination of Rise of the Robots and Dark Souls. It's third-person beat-em-up melee combat, but in a science fiction setting, and frankly, I'm extremely intrigued. If this game turns out to be as quality as it looks, then a lot of the groundwork that Dark Souls laid is going to come to fruition as people realize that other thematic elements can be incorporated in such a genre. Number 16, Styx Shards of Darkness, which is a fantastic, true spiritual successor to Thief. And in a lot of ways, it doesn't look anything like Thief, but actually in a lot of ways it does, and, well, as far as stealth goes, it just nails it. You play as Styx, who's a goblin, and it is a true stealth game. You can assassinate people, but there isn't a combat element. You can't just fight in case you get noticed, which is a criticism some people have of games like Dishonored, although Dishonored is one of my favorite games. Still, this isn't a hybrid game. This is a true stealth game. It's tough, but it's inventive and fair, and if you like stealth, you have to try it. It's really, really good. Number 15, State of Decay, which looks to bring in a community element more so than the original, taking the zombie survival game into a different place. They really want to push the idea of cooperative play even further than they have in the past by making it so that it's actually something you can depend on systematically. They're hoping to make playing with your friends more fun and a more friendly experience that you all can partake in a much more cohesive way. State of Decay 1 is great. I mean, it's a really good game, so I'm really looking forward to this. Number 14 is Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Wildlands, which before I go into, I want to say it's been supported very well with a patch literally having gone up very, very recently. Wildlands is an open world tactical shooter, and that might maybe throw you for a little bit of a loop. The idea of doing a tactical shooter in an open world has been flirted with other games, but Tom Clancy is really the tactical shooter franchise. It's also got great co-op, where you and 3 friends or 3 randoms can go around and do everything you're supposed to do in the game, and it generally does an amazing job of representing the place that it plops you into, Bolivia, with frankly some of the best visuals that have ever been in a Tom Clancy game. The narrative, however, isn't amazing. It's kind of repetitive sometimes, and missions can also get a little repetitive, but if you can get over that, the mechanics and the open world that you're placed in are really, really good. Number 13, Detroit Become Human, which is a really interesting looking action-adventure game where there are multiple playable characters, and if any of them die, you can continue to play the game, and there's no game over, and the game will just continue to branch, which is really, for me, interesting. The game is about androids living in, where else, Detroit, where these androids grasp with the idea of living among the humans. Also, other androids, police androids, are deviating from their programming and causing, let's just say, a ruckus. The game is by Quatic Dream, the studio behind Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls. Generally, I regard them as a quality studio, and I'm looking forward to playing this. Number 12. Vampyr is a dark fantasy action RPG that revolves around a doctor who is gradually sort of coming to terms with the fact that he is a vampire. Being he is a doctor, he cannot harm people, but being he's a vampire, he's quite bloodthirsty and, well, kind of needs to be bloodthirsty in order to survive. It takes place in 1918 London and looks to have very, very fun combat. Like, that's the thing I've most noticed about this game, is how interesting and fun the combat looks. It reminds me a little bit of Final Fantasy 15 and maybe a little bit of Dark Souls, but pushed a little bit more arcadey. I don't know if I have a perfect read on it yet, but it looks to be a combination of things that I'm interested in. I'm excited to see more about this one at E3. Number 11, Crackdown 3, which, holy shit, I really want Crackdown 3 to just come out. Every time I talk about it, I have to say I loved Red Faction Guerrilla, I loved Red Faction, I love the concept of destroying the environment, and Crackdown 3 is going to give me that on the biggest scale possible, and I'm still waiting for it. It's such a cool looking game. Using cloud computing to go way beyond the abilities of the Xbox One is just a really interesting idea, and the result of having so much physics going on at once just seems like a hell of a lot of fun to me. Add that to the fact that Crackdown 2 was a good game, so if they continue the ideas in there as well as the large amounts of destruction at large scale, I'm ready for it. Just release the damn game, please. Number 10, Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord, which is set 200 years before the previous game Mount and Blade Warband. It's really nice to see that this has so much better graphics of Mount and Blade Warband, as well as some upgrades in the gameplay, specifically to artificial intelligence. They've also talked about how the inventory interface is going to be significantly more efficient, as well as various other improvements to the game, like the siege system. But let's go ahead and say this, there is no really big problem with the other Mount and Blade games. Number 9 is For Honor, which is a hack and slash that's faction-based with various heroes with unique weapons and fighting styles. It has a really interesting and tactical combat style they call the Art of Battle that kind of layers on top of the hack and slash gameplay in a way that makes a game that actually has a lot of depth, and that's something that's really odd, but hack and slash games have been accumulating depth, so to speak. It's a genre that has been getting a lot better over the years, despite being one of the oldest genres out there, and requires a little bit of patience, but if you can give it that, it's really a great game. Number 8, Nier Automata, which I can't recommend enough. This is one of my favorite games in years. Now, not to say Nier was bad or anything, but Nier Automata just fully realizes it with a great combat system. Actually, quite a few different great combat systems. There's so much to do in this game, so many styles of gameplay. It's one of those games that just blows your mind. I love this game. If you love Bayonetta or any Platinum Games game, then you absolutely have to play this game because it's so good. It just so fluidly transitions between different genres of games. What this game manages to do is be a high-energy action game while being a really in-depth RPG that gives you a different story on multiple playthroughs and, well, will keep you busy forever. This game has so much depth and so much style, but in my opinion, Platinum Games pretty much always just knocks it out of the park. Number 7, Days Gone, which last year's E3 stage demo had me friggin' hyped, with just hordes and hordes of enemies flying at you in a mob rush. There's stealth elements, there's great looking combat, a huge open world, and most interesting to me is obviously the idea of the hordes. It looks like how a major zombie attack would go in a way that we haven't really experienced, but probably closer to how it might be in real life if it did happen. It's obviously embellished a little bit, but I have to imagine it would be terrifying, and it really gets my adrenaline going mind-blowing just watching that clip, and I can't wait. Number 6 is Super Mario Odyssey, a game that looks like it is going to take Mario and really shake it up, because frankly the art style is signaling that there is going to be something different about this game. Now, the gameplay itself looks very much like classic 3D Mario, a la Mario 64 or Mario Sunshine, but there seems to be a lot of new mechanics like the hat-shaped spaceship, and also a return of some fairly old mechanics like vegetable throwing. But more than that, the setting really looks different from any Mario game to date. First, there's different art styles everywhere. Second, there's a city that is pretty much populated by real people-ish, which is super weird. I mean, when you contrast Mario with everybody in this city and the realistic look of the city, it's very strange. But it's interesting, and I'm looking forward to it quite a bit. Number 5 is Assassin's Creed Empire, in which the series will be going to Egypt. Supposedly, this game is going to be drawing some more inspiration from The Witcher, which I think is a really interesting idea to do with the Assassin's Creed franchise. On account, it's always been built on good combat, but I'm not gonna say the stories have always made me interested. That being said, a lot of the things that they are addressing when they talk about the game are things that I've had a problem with in the past, so I'm kind of excited for it. Obviously, I want games to be good, I don't want them to be repetitive or bad, and I kinda don't think this one's going to be, for whatever reason. Number 4 is Middleearth Shadow of War, which is the long-awaited sequel to Middleearth Shadow of Mordor, continuing the idea of telling the story between The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's said to be a big build on top of the stuff that came out in Shadow of Mordor, which, controversy aside, was a great game. It had great combat, the Nemesis system in it actually was really good, but there were some limitations in the game that kind of got highlighted by the way they marketed it, unfortunately. The developers are calling this the Terminator 2 to the original game's Terminator though, so that very much interests me. I enjoyed the first Terminator, but I loved the second Terminator, and it seems like that's what they're going for. They said the original is a hack and slash, this is a more action RPG approach. If they actually do build a game that has much more depth than the original, but at the same time retains the things that were good in it, I'm totally there. Number 3, is Horizon Zero Dawn, which what else is there to be said about Horizon Zero Dawn? It's friggin' phenomenal. Not only is it a sprawling, dense world with tons of things going on in it, it's so interactive, it's so well done, but there's no microtransactions in it. You can't buy a season pass for it. It doesn't feel chopped up because you get a full game when you buy it in every way, both in-game and regarding the business model surrounding the game. This is just exactly what video games are supposed to be, something that's great and innovative and fun and representative of innovative ideas. I had so much fun with this game, and I'll probably play it more when I get a couple other things done. Number 2 is Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which if the year ended now, would probably be number 1. Breath of the Wild is so good. In so many ways, it rethought what could be a Zelda game, and in a lot of ways, they kept the best things. They simplified so much of it without making it too simple, and they sent everyone off in random directions in such a way where it just feels like an adventure that you have so much input in. Well, in all actuality, it has a story that's not player created. It feels as though you're creating the adventure as you go, and in truth, that's amazing. What they did with Breath of the Wild is amazing, and you just gotta play it. Like, you gotta get a Switch and play this game. It's so good. Like I said, Switch was gonna be good. I said it understood something about the core of what people want out of a gaming system, and although it's not super powerful, the design attitudes yielded this game, and this game is great. And finally, number 1 is Red Dead Redemption 2. Let's just be real, the last Red Dead Redemption, the first one, the second Red Dead game, whatever you want to call it, is one of the best open world games still. It has a sprawling story that's incredibly interesting to this day, lots of well-developed characters, and it's the game where Rockstar finally figured out how gunplay works. It's a game that holds up today, although it's significantly less detailed than a lot of games you see today. It's probably the most deserving of a sequel out of any game from its era, and I can't wait for the sequel. We don't have an absolute load of information on it yet, but it's the sequel to Red Dead Redemption. What else is there to say? Which third-person game are you looking forward to the most? Leave a comment telling us, and don't forget to click like. If you're not subscribed, now is a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter @FalconTheHero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.